Donald Trump has been found guilty by a jury after a criminal trial that lasted 5 weeks. Hearings in former US President Donald Trump's first criminal trial have finally wrapped up after 5 weeks in a US court.
Let's get into it.
Now, the trial did centre on Trump's alleged cover-up of a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels, and that was in the lead up to the 2016 presidential election. Now, over the course of the trial, we heard from more than 20 witnesses, or rather the jury heard from more than 20 witnesses, and this is the first criminal trial, as I said, that the former president has faced, so It's a fairly big one.
But he does have a couple of cases on the go here, and it can get a bit confusing to remember which one is which and in which jurisdiction he's facing what charges. This one is really significant because of that criminal element. Run me through the basics of the case.
Yeah, so during his 2016 presidential election campaign, Donald Trump arranged for an $130,000 US payment to be made to adult film star Stormy Daniels.
So that's about $200K.
Who claims to have had sex with him a decade earlier. Now, Trump instructed his then lawyer, Michael Cohen, and we'll speak about him a bit later, to facilitate the payment to Daniels in exchange for her silence. It's then alleged that Trump falsified multiple business records to hide that payment, and that is a criminal offence in the US state of New York. He pleaded not guilty to 34 charges in New York's Supreme Court. Here's how the former president saw the case himself.
This is all election hunting, election interfering. It's going after Joe Biden's political opponent because he can't do it himself, and they're helping out. And we have a judge who's highly conflicted. He happens to be corrupt. It's the worst confliction. It's the worst that anybody's seen. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
Okay, so unsurprisingly, Donald Trump has quite a clear and strong sense of how he feels about this case. Talk me through what actually happened, though, through the trial.
Well, I mean, as with any trial, there are ups and downs, there are witnesses, but very rarely in a trial do we hear about one of the key people actually being fined. So during this trial, Trump violated a court order that banned him from making public statements about jurors and witnesses outside of court.
Right.
So the court found Trump also posted about the trial on his social media platform, Truth Social, which he also wasn't allowed to do. And this led him being found in contempt of court twice. So he was fined a total of $10,000 US, and that was, not even related to the case itself. That was what was just happening in the court. So a fairly expensive experience for Donald Trump when we haven't even considered the charges at hand here.
And I want to turn now to who we heard from during the trial. And one of those people was Stormy Daniels herself. She's at the center of this story, right?
She is. So Stormy Daniels herself appeared in the witness box where she detailed an alleged sexual encounter with Donald Trump at a US resort back in 2006. It is important to note here that Trump denies ever having had sex with Daniels. After Daniels' testimony, and I'm not really going to go into it, it's fairly salacious, and you've told me things that I want to unhear.
Yeah, fair enough.
But the justice in the case said that some of the evidence that she gave would have probably been, quote, better left unsaid, which is a fairly remarkable thing to say about evidence. And that was in response to Trump's lawyers trying to get the case itself thrown out as a mistrial.
I'm looking forward to the Netflix series about this case. Who else did we hear from, though?
Hello, I'm James, and I produced the video you're watching. If you're enjoying what you're watching, we'd love it if you considered subscribing and checking us out on our other platforms. It'd really help in getting the word out about what we're doing here at TDA. Thanks very much, and now back to the deep dive.
Well, the other star witness was Trump's ex-lawyer, Michael Cohen, who I mentioned earlier, who admitted to organising the payments to Stormy Daniels on Donald Trump's behalf. He also admitted to suppressing negative stories about Trump to avoid them being reported on in the media. He also claimed that Trump reimbursed him for the payment, but attempted to disguise the funds as legitimate legal expenses.
So it seems like Michael Cohen is another one of those kind of Trump insiders who was a strong ally of the former president and is now a key witness against him. But it feels like every day with this case, there was just more salacious detail. When the two sides had to bring everything together, how did they summarize and close their arguments?
Yeah, well, Trump, who in this case is the defendant, didn't give evidence during the trial.
He didn't have to, right?
No. So his lawyers called just 2 witnesses to the stand throughout the whole trial. The prosecution's lawyers, on the other hand, they summoned more than 20 witnesses. That included, as I said, Daniels and Michael Cohen. In closing arguments from the defense, Trump's lawyers tried to discredit Michael Cohen. They called him the gloat, which is the greatest liar of all time.
I might borrow that one.
Honestly, love it, might use it. The prosecution's closing argument lasted over 5 hours, and Stormy Daniels' lawyers accused Trump of overseeing a conspiracy and a cover-up to help him win the 2016 presidential election.
And I'm keen to talk about the impact of all of this on the upcoming presidential election, where Trump is likely the Republican candidate. Before that, I saw heaps of videos online of Robert De Niro, the actor, outside court.
Yeah.
Was he wasn't involved directly with the case, right?
No. So this is one of those interesting things where we're trying to make sense of a news story. And you might have seen this. I mean, I know it was all over my TikTok, for example. So Robert De Niro and members of Joe Biden's re-election campaign made an appearance outside the courthouse at the end of the trial. De Niro, fair to say, doesn't think very highly of Donald Trump. He called him a tyrant and a danger to the lives of Americans. He said, and I quote here, "If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss your freedoms goodbye." He got into a bit of a tussle with some of the Trump supporters who tried to interrupt his press conference. I would play a bit of it here, but there is a fair bit of bleeping on both sides there.
Good to see we're still a family show.
They don't see eye to eye, though. That is for sure. And yeah, that's why Robert De Niro is somehow involved with this story.
Okay, so that's the case. And now, obviously, overnight, we've received this guilty verdict. What happens now?
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing to say from the outset is that this does not hamper Donald Trump's ability to run for president.
Even though he's been found guilty in a
Correct.
criminal trial.
Correct. Legally, nothing has changed. Logistically, if he then is imprisoned, if that is what the sentence is, that will be difficult for him. He would much prefer to be out on the campaign trail than to be in prison. But it doesn't actually legally impact his right to run for president.
This remarkable story of the US 2024 presidential election continues for now with the same 2 main characters seemingly in front. Zara, we'll have to kind of track this one day by day because I think there's going to be a few twists and turns.
We will. I will not be the person tracking that day by day because I am off for a couple of weeks on my honeymoon. So I will be back on the pod in July, but you're in very safe hands. But until then, thank you for supporting the Daily Aus each and every day. And Billy and Sam will be back next week.